is 7:04. The board previously met in closed session under exception C1, C11, and C21. With that, I'd like to call back to order the May 28th, 2024 Waukegan Public Schools Board of Education meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Mr. Riddle,
Present.
Mr. McBride,
Present.
Ms. Hannah, Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Fabian,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, we do have a quorum. All board members, with the exception of Ms. Gonzalez, are present. For Pledge of Allegiance, or I'd like a motion to go back into open session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Lindsay. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We are now in open session. Mr. Christensen, if you be so kind as to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. President's report this evening is brief. I want to thank all of our educators and faculty members for amazing school year. Hope you all enjoy your summer. It was a really great opportunity seeing all of our students at the graduations and the celebrations. I really like to commend the tilt towards the future, as we have seen and allowed our seniors to go back to their elementary schools. I know my own son, who attends Cook, came home to tell me all about how he got to see the big high school students come back to celebrate, and he can't wait till he graduates high school. In addition, I appreciate all of the different festivities that have gone on with the end of the year celebrations and the commitment in which all of our staff members show up and give 100% every day. So thank you all for your service, and thank you to all of those who were responsible for putting on those multiple events. It was a long couple weeks, but always very, very exciting. Also got to attend the retirement celebration for many of our faculty and staff members. So thank you to the HR team who put that together, and thank you to those years of service for all of those who came out to that retirement, and we appreciate their contributions to Waukegan Public Schools. With that, I will like to give the remainder of my time to our student board member, Mr. Hinojosa, for the student board member report.
Thank you, President Ewing. I would actually yield the balance of my time to the superintendent and her report. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone here tonight. So I'd like to ask Dr. Null, Dr. Eduardo, and Dr. Null to please come up. We're going to be talking about our promotion policy, along with, I'll let you lead it from there. Thank you, Dr. Cesario.
Thank you. Good evening, board president, superintendent, members of the board, colleagues, guests, community members. So before Jason before Dr. Null shares the promotion policy, we have two policies up this evening, one on grading and one on promotion and retention. There was a really great discussion last week on the grading policy. And so what you see coming forward, there'll be a slight change to that, and that is to increase the engagement around this topic. One of the components of the grading policy has to do with moving the F from 0 to 59 to 50, and we are going to keep it. We made the suggestion to keep it as it is. So everything else in that policy is staying the same, with the exception of we will keep it at 0. And so that would allow us some time to have engagement with our teachers around their thoughts on this topic. So we want to continue that conversation and just ensure that we start that this summer and have that go into the fall.
We do plan to come back to the board probably around November, December with some recommendations. So just for clarity's sake, the grading policy will be going for a second reading tonight. The administration is asking to put a stick pin into the amount of grading, the 50% versus the 0%, until we can have some focus groups, engage our staff a little bit more, and revisit it, because we do hear the concern, and we, not even the concern, but also the, you want input on it, and we can respect that. So at this time, that's how we are making the recommendation to the board. I do know that we have 2 board members that sat on this committee, and so that would be our recommend. Is it 2? I thought it was you and Ms. Gonzalez, Ms. Lansing, but I could
Well,
be.
Ms. Gonzalez was on the equity.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So we're both on the equity, but I was on the.
The promotion. Okay, I stand corrected. So at that time, that will be the administration's recommendation. So, Dr. Null, if you want to go through the promotion policy at this time.
Finance is not important, Ms. Hannah? Okay, and you got that one, right? Yeah, each board member has gotten 2 opportunities with the exception of Mr., I think, Riddle or Fabian, the last 3. But we can revisit that. I apologize for the sidebar conversation.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Jason Nault from the academics team, going to be presenting on another one of policies that we've been working on over the course of several months. This one actually has been over a year, and that's policy 5215, promotion and retention of students. Before I start, I did want to acknowledge all the different members who were part of our policy work group. As I mentioned, we were meeting for well over a year, and I'll go through the timeline here in a second. But we had representatives from many of the academic departments. We had teacher representatives. We had 2 board members that were part of the committee as well, Ms. Fabian and Mr. Hinojosa. So thank you for your contributions to the group as well. But this team worked together for 18 months or so, coming up with a slight edit of the policy that was existing. And we think this policy will be much more beneficial to not only students and staff, but also from an implementation standpoint. We feel confident that we'll be able to implement this with much more fidelity than the previous policy. Next slide, please. This is just a visual for the audience and community and staff that are here to kind of see how the equity policy review process takes place. We have an equity advisory council that's comprised of community members, staff members, teachers, parents, led by Dr. Fields, who review these policies and provide their input to committees that share these policies. So you can see kind of the roadmap here, kind of what it looks like. We start looking at different policies. We've been looking at policies for the last couple years, and essentially that policy gets reviewed by the Equity Advisory Council. It's taken back to the executive team, and then it's made available for presentation to the board. So just wanted to show the visual here. The EAC did review this policy in the fall, so they had an opportunity to get their eyes on it as well. Next slide, please. So what is policy 5215? You can find the entirety of the policy on our district website. It's there. This is just a quick overview or blurb of the policy. I'm not going to read it to you, but essentially it's a policy where the board requires students that achieve minimal competency prior to being promoted, and that promotion is determined on academic growth and development. So there is no social promotion or other criteria that seeks to promote students outside of academic criteria. As mentioned, the timeline for the committee when we reviewed this policy actually dates back to when I first started here 5 years ago. When I came in October of 2018, the policy had just been adopted by the board and was going to be the first year of implementation, I believe, was going to be August of 2019. During the 2019 and 2020 school year, obviously the policy was paused because the district was in remote learning, so there was no implementation of the policy at that point. Upon our return from the pandemic, when we were in hybrid, we also had the policy paused as we allowed students, staff, families to kind of get acclimated back to school, and we know that we had a large number of our students and students that did not return to school during hybrid. During the 21-22 school year, we were dealing with a lot of learning loss. Of course, all the data and research was out about how far students had digressed during the pandemic. So once again, that policy was paused for those years as well. And since that time, the committee's been working on it over the last, like I said, 18 months or so to try to get it to where it's present state, which is what we're presenting this evening. Some features of the policy. The policy will be complemented by a rigorous summer school program. We are currently in the process of starting summer school next week. There's been some tweaks that we've made to summer programming that will also carry over into this policy as well. The policy is going to look at specific grade level success criteria, specifically academic and attendance. That's going to ensure that the decisions that are made as it relates to this policy are equitable, and they consider the unique needs of all of our different student groups, our EL, our DL, newcomers, etc. The policy also will allow for parents and building administration to request the retention of their child with supporting data as well. So just because a student does not particularly fall into some of the benchmark grade level groups that we've identified, parents and building administrators can also request a student to be eligible for retention with supporting data. And that data is usually reviewed by members of the academic team, and then we either honor the recommendation or we provide the parent or the administrator with a rationale why that recommendation was not honored. Next slide. Thank you. So as far as the benchmark grades, the promotion policy is going to focus on students in grades 3, 5, and 8, and all grade levels at the high school. Those are the benchmark grades. Students in these grades will be required to display academic proficiency across a variety of criteria designed to gauge overall student performance. Students who are identified as making inadequate progress at the conclusion of that year will be required to attend and successfully complete a rigorous summer bridge program in order to be promoted to the next grade level. The summer bridge program is not something separate from our summer program. It'll just be a facet of our regular summer school traditional program that will be specific to those students who did not meet those criteria. Students who are in non-benchmark grades, so students that are in grades 2, 4, 6, 7, will fall into what we call an early warning cohort. And in that cohort, those students will be monitored annually and eligible for retention based on academic performance and, of course, again, administrator recommendation. In addition to the Summer Bridge program, we will still continue to offer summer enrichment and other summer opportunities for all of our students. Some of the changes that we've already made in the summer program for this current year is that summer school typically in previous years was 4 days a week. We have now shifted to make summer school a 5-day-a-week program. In addition, we are using our Tier 1 curricular resources that we have available in the district during summer school as well. So there's not kind of this disjointed curriculum that students are getting throughout the course of the summer. They're getting the same curriculum that they're receiving during the regular school year. So why this policy? And this probably goes back to 2019 when the original committee started working on this. Number one, we feel the policy has a strong emphasis on skill development and student achievement across all levels of our system. Number two, the revisions that we're making this evening, or the edits that we're making this evening, closely mirror what the board previously approved back in 2019, with some slight changes of criteria. Looking at our data over time, we do see the biggest decline in grade level proficiency as students move throughout our system. So starting in middle school is when we really start to see some of our students start to dip academically. So we wanted to really focus on students that are in those benchmark grades of 5 and 8, as well as the high school. And then, of course, the rationale is just to create some post-secondary expectations for learning, for students to successfully complete courses of study that closely resemble what they'll be expected to accomplish once they leave the district. Earning a high school diploma also creates opportunities for students beyond high school, college, career, workforce, military, etc. So those are just some of the many reasons that we feel this policy is important. Okay, the next several slides, I'm kind of going to break down what it looks like at the different benchmark grade levels. So if we look at elementary, again, it's going to focus on students in 3rd and 5th grade. The early warning grades will be 2nd and 4th. And then the criteria that we're going to look at the elementary level, we use standards-based grading. So the criteria that we're going to look at is if a student receives a 1, which is below grade level standard, and their overall grade in both reading and math on the final report card, they will be required to attend summer school. We do have attendance criteria on there as well, and attendance is not going to be used to determine students that are eligible for summer school. That data is going to be more utilized to identify interventions for those students that surpass either 9 unexcused absences or for the chronic absent students that have 18 or pushing that 18 excused or unexcused number of absences. Those students will be monitored as well throughout the course of the year because we know attendance usually correlates to better performance in the classroom. At the middle school level, we're going to focus on students that are currently in 8th grade. And again, those early warning grades will be 6th and 7th, so we're still going to monitor the same criteria that we're utilizing for these benchmarks grades in these early warning grades as well. If a student has lower than a 2.0 rolling cumulative GPA or lower in all courses on the final report card, they will be required to attend Summer Bridge. So a little bit of a shift here. We're not just focusing on ELA and math at the middle school, we're focusing on all their coursework. We had some middle school teachers that were part of this committee, and they were very adamant that all courses should be equally valued in this policy so that a student's rolling GPA should be inclusive of all courses and not just core courses, but all on-core courses as well. So the committee is proposing that any student that has lower than a 2.0 rolling cumulative GPA, so rolling means their GPA, their GPA that's accumulated at the end of 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So it's a rolling GPA that they get their 8th grade year. All right, so what does that emphasize? That emphasizes that 6th grade matters, 7th grade matters, and 8th grade matters, so that at the end of the 8th grade year, if they don't have that 2.0, if they're below that 2.0 rolling GPA, they will be required to attend the Summer Bridge program. And again, we do have the attendance criteria on here as well, again, just for intervention purposes if needed. At the high school, it's pretty black and white, pretty cut and dry in terms of credit accumulation. So we're focusing on all grade levels at the high school. And the academic criteria is essentially the number of credits that students earn throughout their time in high school. So in order to be a sophomore, you need 5 or more credits. In order to be a junior, you need 9 or more credits. Senior, 13 or more credits, et cetera. So students that are not meeting those benchmark number of credits will be required to attend our Summer Bridge program to get back on track. And there's a subsequent slide up in the future presentation here that I'll kind of show you what that looks like depending on how many credits they are off track. Again, we also have the attendance criterion here for intervention purposes. All right, so what does summer programming look like? Again, students at the elementary level, for summer programming, students who receive an overall grade of 1 below grade level standard in reading, in both math, in reading, it's a typo on there. Yeah, and in both reading and math will be required to attend Summer Bridge. So if they have a 1 for their overall grade in both reading and math, they'll be required to attend Summer Bridge. At the middle school level, students in 8th grade who earn a cumulative GPA lower than 2.0 on their final report card will be required to attend Summer Bridge. And at the high school, any student who is not on track to earn credits for placement into the next class will also be required to attend our Summer Bridge program. If you do look at the next slide, it kind of breaks down the group or the committee really wanted to think through what does it look like for a student to be off track at the high school level. So this is high school specific, this chart that you see here. So the recommendation we're making is that students that are 1 and 2 credits off track, student would be promoted to the next grade level. However, summer school would be highly recommended for that student. We know that there's opportunities before school, after school, that they can do credit recovery as well. Students that are 3 or 4 credits off track, the student would not be promoted to the next grade level. Summer school would be required, and they would be required to also enroll in either a first period or a 10th period course to try to get themselves back on track. So for that middle column there, if we have a student who's at Brookside in the 10th grade and they are more than 4 credits off track to become a junior, they would not be allowed to matriculate to the Washington campus until they either went to summer school and they earned those credits that they were deficient, or they did some credit recovery before school, the first period or the 10th period, and those, we would be looking at that data at the semester, right? So if they did earn enough at the semester, they would be able to move over, but that we wanted to kind of delineate between the number of credits that students were off track and what would some of the options be for those. Students that are more than 5 or more credits off track would not be promoted to the next grade level. Summer school would be required, and then we would recommend AOEC enrollment for that student at that particular time. until they're back on track. So what we did is we looked at data from the end of last year at this time to kind of do an assessment of how this would impact our summer school numbers, how this would impact the number of students that we're looking at here. So we looked at May of 2023 data, end of year data. And what you'll see here is that these were the number of students in this chart that in these benchmark grades and these early warning grades that would technically qualify for our summer bridge program. So just to kind of help you decipher the chart, looking at third grade, there were 71 students that had a 1 in both reading and math at the end of last school year. We haven't looked at this current school year data yet. We will eventually, but when we looked at last year's data, this is what we had for numbers in terms of students that met that criteria. Fifth grade, same thing. 80 students had either a 1 or below in both, a 1 in both reading and math. Then our middle school, you can see these were the students that did not have a rolling 2.0 or higher. The only exception would be our sixth graders because they didn't necessarily have a rolling GPA. We just used their sixth grade GPA as a kind of an indicator. But you can again see the number of students that would have been eligible for summer school. So we have, if you add those up for the middle school, it's 854 students. And then at the high school, you'll see the number of students who were off track based on the credit allocations that were needed to either move from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, junior to senior, et cetera. And we had 896 students that at the end of last year would be eligible for our summer bridge program based on this data. So total, if you go to the next slide, we also looked at our summer school enrollment for the last several years to kind of give the board and community context about what that would look like. So starting at the far left, you'll see our summer school numbers for the 21-22 school year was 3,225 students. Summer school numbers for the 22-23 school year was 3,055 students. And then we took the 2-year average of the non-benchmark grades. So you'll see third grade, for example, 71. That's the number from the previous table that I just showed you. For fifth grade, 80. That's the number from the previous table that I just showed you. And our middle school numbers and our high school numbers. And then we took the 2-year average for the other grades, just so we can get a general idea of how many possible students, if this policy was being implemented, would have been enrolled in our summer school program. And as you can see, it's 2,920. And again, that would be students that are only eligible for the summer bridge program. So any student that wanted to take enrichment opportunities, that number would be higher if we included those students in this count. So in terms of implementing this policy, this is kind of where the policy has fell short, in my opinion, in previous years. There's been a lot of time and energy put into developing a robust policy. Outside of the pandemic, there were some obstacles that prevented us from really implementing the policy with fidelity. So as mentioned, throughout the year, we are going to target students in those grades 3-5 in middle school and high school. That includes the early warning grades as well. And we're going to monitor those academic criteria that I already mentioned. Students not meeting them would require to attend that mandatory summer bridge program. And our plan to do this is to phase this in. So that, for a couple reasons. First and foremost, we want to kind of deal with some real-time data and really look at and see how many students are going to be possibly required to attend that summer bridge program. And then we also wanted to assess the district's ability to implement this in terms of resources, in terms of finances, in terms of buildings and facilities, what that may look like. So our plan is to phase it in over the course of 3 years, with year 1 having students in grades 3, 8, and 9 be kind of our guinea pig group in that first year, which would be next year. And then year 2, students in grades 5 and 10. Year 3, students in grades 11 and 12, with the understanding, again, that any parent, any administrator can still request that a student be eligible or attend summer school and be eligible for retention. But we wanted to really kind of focus in on these grade levels and phase it in over 3 years to help assess the impact of it, help assess if there's any tweaks that need to be made as we're rolling this out, so we don't run into some of the same problems that we've run into previously, and that we can truly get a picture and a sense of what impact it's going to have on our students and our families, the district as a whole, et cetera. In terms of next steps, when we started this in 2019, the district had put together several FAQs and other documents for parents that they could easily access to kind of really understand what the policy is about. So next steps would be obviously to create those documents and get those documents translated for our schools, for our parents, for our students, for teachers, et cetera. FACE is going to organize several summer outreach opportunities for parents as well, whether that's, again, could be focus groups, could be in town, or town halls, could be Facebook live sessions, et cetera. And then as we approach the fall, winter, and spring, we'll continue with FACE doing outreach for our parents and other stakeholders. We'll send out academic progress notices and calls every 5 weeks to parents throughout the first 30 weeks of the year. At the conclusion of quarter 3, we would send out early warning letters to parents of students that are trending towards possible participation in the Summer Bridge program. And by the end of April, we would finalize our Summer Bridge list, and then notify parents at that time that their student would be eligible for that Summer Bridge program. We also have plans to create some on-track dashboards that could be easily accessible for our principals, for us at the district level as well, so we can monitor this information readily, and again, send out that communication to our parents every 5 weeks about the progress of their student. Questions? Yes.
Ms. Lenzing and then Ms. Hannah.
Thank you, Dr. Nault. So
Yep.
I do appreciate taking in the feedback regarding the grading policy and hosting opportunities. I have more comments on that, but that's a later item. And I also appreciate the honest assessment that the implementation needs to be done with fidelity, and if it's not, then we can't gauge if it's working. I do have 4 questions. So one glaring concern that I have, especially with our elementary school students, is from what I'm understanding, they need a 1 in reading and a 1 in math in order to qualify. But
For
for
their overall grade.
their overall grade.
There's other standards that they're assessed on, but then they get an overall reading grade, overall reading score and an overall math score. Okay.
Yeah, I get that,
Okay.
but my concern is they have to be poor in both reading and math. At that age for 3rd grade, my opinion is it should be or, because these are fundamental skills that are going to support them in 4th grade and in 5th grade and beyond. And we have populations where they're not reading at grade level, and that's our goal. So I understand we talk about growth and attainment and proficiency. We want to get them there. So I don't think it's appropriate to do an and. I think it's more appropriate for that grade level to be or. If you have 1 in either one, you should go. Tied to that is, what does the curriculum look like? So if these students in 3rd and 5th grade are poor in reading, are they going to get targeted reading instruction? Are they going to get targeted math instruction? Or is it going to be a broad spectrum of coursework during their curriculum?
Yeah, that's the plan. So the Summer Bridge program, and we still haven't completely baked out what it's going to look like in terms of all the details and logistics, but the Summer Bridge program will be set up to provide those intense interventions for students in those areas. And it could be, obviously if a student's there because of both, they're going to get both in that summer program. We're going to try to intensify it, split it up over the course of the 4 or 5 weeks, so that student is getting that intensive support in both areas. Hopefully, and that they show progress. And one thing I do want to clear up is that just because they're eligible for the Summer Bridge program doesn't mean they're automatically being retained. The Summer Bridge program is the vehicle for them to try to demonstrate to the district and to us that they have made some adequate progress and they can be promoted to the next grade level. So it's not you're in Summer Bridge and you're on it's not an automatically drawn conclusion that you're going to be retained.
So it's an
Okay.
opportunity to
Correct.
move on or repeat,
Correct.
essentially.
Yes.
And so when you talk about the middle school curriculum as well, if that's across all courses, I'm also curious to see how those groups are going to be identified. So if a student's science was really pulling them down, Is it going to be more science and math focused, et cetera? So I understand you're still
Yeah.
baking out those details, but that's something that I'm curious on.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to make some individual decisions about where we think that student would be best supported in what areas.
Yeah.
May not be able to capture them all, but enough to hopefully get the student either, to either pass that science class or that reading, that math class or whatever, so that the GPA would be boosted, so.
So create a hierarchy of their needs. Okay. And then, so 2 more questions. What happens if a student doesn't attend? More specifically, what if a high school student doesn't attend?
So we had this discussion in the committee
Yeah.
many times. And the consensus of the group was that to have a policy like this in place, in order for it to be fully effective, it can't be gray.
You got to do
It
it.
can't be gray.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
got to be this or it's got to be that.
Yeah.
Now, understanding that there can be extreme circumstances that could prevent or prohibit a student from possibly participating in summer school. And those will be looked at on a case-by-case basis, but it's not going to be, the family wants to take a vacation for 2 weeks and it's going to coincide with summer school. Those are the decisions that parents are going to have to make. Because we're hoping that as we communicate this throughout the entire school year, that it's very clear that, hey, your son or daughter, is either doing well in these criteria or not doing well in these academic criteria, and they need the extra support. If they don't get the extra support, they don't attend Summer Bridge, then that could have some implications.
Yeah. And of course, the goal is for all of our students to get the supports they need so they can be successful.
Correct.
So hopefully that's their mindset
Correct.
as well. But I understand, especially with the high school students, that's a time where they go do summer jobs. And so if they're not performing well in school, that could impact that. And so I'm just, in my
Yeah.
mind, preparing for the instance where someone decides not to.
Sure.
But
And
it
one of the
sounds like-
things that we did this summer, Mrs. Lansing, just so you know, is we created an AM and a PM session for
Yes,
the high
we
school
did.
to kind of, make it more accessible to students that may have some conflicts in the morning or conflicts in the afternoon, so that they could pick a session, to attend. So,
That best fits them.
Yeah.
And then my last question is, how do dual language learners and diverse learners fit into this framework? Was that talked about in committee, and what's anticipated?
It was. It's actually in the policy itself. I didn't specify it in here, but in the policy itself, it's mentioned. Obviously, for DL students, the IEP is going to be the guiding document that's going to determine whether or not that student is getting the support that they need, whether that be regular school, summer school, et cetera. And for our dual language learners, we have, in terms of the criteria that we're using to assess them, that would be in their, given in their primary language of instruction. So there's, throughout the course of the school year, if a student is not getting that support or that intervention, that could be a situation where we look at that and say, okay, this student was either wasn't getting the language support that they needed, or it was a student that just came into the country and had no prior education. So there's situational things that we would have to look at, of course, with the ultimate goal of having students be successful. But yes, those things were taken into consideration. They're more spelled out in the actual policy itself.
Yeah.
And I didn't spell them out in the.
No, understood. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that everyone's going to be aware of that. And one of the other reasons I'm asking with the dual language, because we also have two-way dual language that's growing in the district. My understanding it's going to be going over to middle school hopefully soon, because that group is aging up. But my students or my kids are in dual language, and so their native language is English.
Yeah.
But if I, as a parent, feel that their scores in Spanish aren't high enough, it sounds like it's not going to be a bridge program. It would be more enrichment.
Yes, for them.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ms. Anna.
I just, Dr. North, thank you for the presentation.
Ms. Anna, can you use your microphone, please?
Thank you, Dr. North, for your presentation.
Of course.
I just want to know, and how are you all planning to get this information to students? And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about, how some teachers give a syllabus.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking that the students need to have this information readily available to them. And not to depend on getting the information through their devices or anything, that it would be some type of tool where they will be able to look at what we are going to be requiring them to do at particularly at the middle school and the high school level. You know.
Yeah.
And so I'm that's my concern,
It's a
that the information is disseminated to the students where they understand it, they see it visually, you know, where they could put it inside their notebooks, something like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And part of our communication plan, again, would be creating those documents that I mentioned, but also educating our principals on it, who hopefully in turn will be educating their staff and their teachers to be able to share the information with their students as well. Once the board approves it, obviously we'll start that marketing right away. Our goal was to have this done before we got pushed back a little bit, but our goal was to have this done in the spring so we could start getting the communication out all over the summer, so that there'd be a lot of information. Say it again. So there'd be a lot of information shared over the summer in preparation for August. You know, shared at the freshman orientations, the middle school orientations, and those things. So students would be, you know, and their families, of course, their parents would be aware of this new policy, and then reinforcing it as many times as possible throughout the course of the school year. I'm sure once they start getting those 5-week notices, if they do get them, that will also keep them on their toes, right, in terms of where they're at in their progress. So the communication plan is going to be the next work of the committee to kind of really bake that out, what that looks like. Obviously, we'll work with FACE, we'll work with Mr. Alajakis, and really get this information out as
And
much as possible.
we gotta be considerate of students that may not have the supports, the parental supports. I mean, even you know, they may not have parents.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's being looked at too.
Yeah, we'll use as many platforms as possible to get the information out, and try to get it in the hands of the people that's going to resonate with, and hopefully that information goes down to the students. And like I said, educating our principals, educating our staff, and everyone, so we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
Mr. McBride.
In your commentations, you mentioned about 3 times truancy intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And I know if you're not there, you can't learn. So you fall short automatically. So, and you mentioned 9 times, I guess, as a grade period. That's when you decide to go and look and see what's going on. But I would say there's always going to be some signals to let you know that that kid is having problems making it to school. As Ms. Hannah alluded to, there's a lot of reasons why I think some of our kids are falling short, and it might be because of the fact home issues. And I know you mentioned that you were going to have FACE get involved to deal with the parents and whatnot, but I just want to know what is the antidote to deal with the truancy issues. How are you going to approach that?
Yeah. So absenteeism or truancy, whatever we want to call it, that's monitored at the school level regularly. They're looking at that data all the time. So I know our schools have certain systems in place where they track and monitor those students. We always communicate to them that 18 days is kind of that magic number for a student to be considered chronically absent per ISBE's guidelines. Before they even get to 18, we want to catch them before that. So sending out 5-day notices to parents, 10-day notices to parents. Our outreach, Department of Student Outreach, I know that they can tap into their truancy officers, and they recognize patterns of students that are starting to miss a significant amount of time. They tap into those folks as well. So it really is a team effort, the attendance piece, to monitor that. And we agree, if they're not there, they can't learn. They're not going to perform, and more than likely they'll end up in Summer Bridge if they have substantial attendance issues. But there's systems in place at the schools. There's a system in place here. Dr. Brown and his department, we're running those attendance reports weekly, so we can identify students. We have on-track reports where we mark kids at the district level, either they're red, yellow, or they're green, depending on their attendance, and that information is shared with principals as well via dashboards. So it's data that we're constantly looking at, and it's data that definitely will probably come into play in this policy for sure. So it's going to be just as important that we continue to do that.
And one other question, are we going to have social workers dealing with the area of those kids that we recognize throughout the whole year have issues, dysfunctional issues with their attitude, behaviors? Because if we don't do that, we're actually, I feel we're fighting a losing battle. We're going to start the year all over again, just like we did when we got started. And I think I don't know if you got that in place or not. I didn't hear you talk about none of those things.
I don't know if it's a social worker per se, but there's MTSS teams at every school that look at that stuff regularly and try to intervene with students. It could be a teacher that the student has a good relationship. It could be a counselor. It could be an administrator. It could be anyone, really. It doesn't necessarily have to be a social worker. But yeah, I know they look at that, again, they look at that as part of their MTSS process at the school level. And then they try to flag students that they, again, are trending toward being either truant or chronically absent, contact parents, those types of things.
And I'm just giving you some things to think about. I mean, as I sit on this board and I listen throughout the whole year what's going on in our district in terms of what's going on in the classrooms and some of the things that I hear while I'm sitting there throughout the year. These are some of the things I'm trying to bring to your attention while you're putting the bridge, as you called it, summer program together, something we do every year. And I say that I've been watching it for the last 16 years, but I'm just trying to give you some components as to why I feel that some of our kids are failing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate the insight. Thank you.
I'll piggyback on Ms. McBride, but Ms. Lindsay.
Oh, I was also going to piggyback on Mr. McBride because you brought up the absences, right? So outreach is sending letters, whether it's excused or not excused. So if my kids are out sick for 10 days and I call them in, they're all excused absences, but I still get a letter in the mail. So I just want to be clear that this policy is saying unexcused absences. So there will be close monitoring of that component compared to excused.
Yes, we specifically mentioned the unexcused absences in here as a piece that we want to monitor with. But yes, you're right. The state no longer doesn't matter to the state whether it's excused or unexcused. They consider the kid absent, and yeah.
Right, but with our policy, we're focusing on the unexcused.
Yes.
Perfect.
Two, my points come down to going back to, I believe, Ms. Hannah, the communication piece. I'm big on that because even as we talk about standards-based grading, right, is we still have parents who have to understand what standards-based grading is and why we're looking at that Q4 as the litmus test for being at a 1 overall in both reading and math. I think even for myself and my wife, it was a lot of understanding, he probably should be at a 2 at the start of the year, and you shouldn't penalize him for being at a 2 at the start of the year. What you want to see is growth, and that he reaches that 3 or that 4 by the time the school year is over. So I think there has to be communication at the elementary school level, not just around the policy, but what around standards-based grading means and what skills they can be working on with their students at home. The other piece is we invested a lot of money in this new wraparound center, and to Mr. McBride's point is if individuals are showing patterns of of truancy, right, we literally created a wraparound center that's supposed to be able to connect our families to the resources that exist in order to support them. It's because while we may not have the resources to be able to do it as a school district, right, is there are community organizations that support our students. That's a lot to put on teachers to have to know what all those resources are, even administrators, but we have a dedicated staff member and team at the wraparound center to do those type of things. So I would make sure that as we move this forward and we involve FACE and these other departments, we also involve Ms. Dotson and the wraparound center to make sure that those supports are reaching the families that need them. So yeah, those were my real big ones around the wraparound center and standards-based grading. But I also want to commend the committee. This was something that, in full transparency, I did not support when I ran for the board and I won. I did not support retaining students. But when talking to our educators and them explaining a lot of the issues that they were seeing at the upper grade levels, to Ms. Lensing's point, this is about giving them the skills that they need. The goal is not to retain students, but it's also fair to staff members and students to put them in classrooms that they're unable they're not ready for, right? And we see the issues that happen when we do that. So I believe it has to be implemented. You know, I get the reasons why we didn't. I agree with those reasons, but it's going to take money, it's going to take resources, and I appreciate the presentation and that you guys put the numbers to it. And for the Board of Education, as we go through the budget process and we have to prioritize spending, we have to use these numbers and we have to reserve those funds, is because what I don't want to see is we promise the community this and then we get here next year and it's too expensive. This has to be a clear focus. And I do agree with Ms. Lensing's point, is I would love reading and math, but at those early grade levels, it's like we're going all in on reading. You know, it's hard to learn math past the third grade level if you struggle with reading. So those are my comments, and then Ms. Fabian with the final comment.
So the logistics part was something that I brought up. I was on the original committee back in 2019, and so knowing that back then we didn't really have that solid number of how many students would be impacted, so that was something that I think this committee was very intentional at looking at, so that we could logistically think through it, because the board does need to know financially the impact, because we don't want to say, well, the kid's not going to pass because we couldn't provide summer school, so now we can't follow our own policy. That's not fair to the student. But the other part that you were talking about is not just the standard-based grading and understanding what the 1, 2, 3, 4 is also training families on how to use their parent portals and how to really go in and see the grades. I know there are, it's more detailed at the middle and the high school level, where parents can see, you know, your kid is missing certain tests or is missing certain assignments. But if they're not logging in and not seeing that, then it's harder to help and assist with that, because our kids are not always going to be honest and not always going to tell us, like, oh yeah, I missed that test, or I didn't turn in that project. So I think it's also going to behoove us to really get parents that support and how to use the tools that we have. And I'm going to harp on this again. We purchased Aubrey for a reason. So if that's going to be the platform that we're going to be using moving forward, is communicating that out and how that could be utilized to not only look at grades and attendance, but we can also utilize that to push out all of those resources as well, because that was the intention of it. So just, there's gonna have to be a full, like, forums and really working with the community and being intentional of being where parents are at. So if we know summertime, they're going to be at different summer programs, like the Park District, or they're going to still be attending, you know, different masses, or they're going to be at the mosque, then that's where we go, and that's where we need to go, just to start getting preemptive on communicating out.
We used to have a class for parents on using Infinite, because I attended it. I know. You
It's
and
also
Ms.
on
Ramirez.
Facebook.
Yeah. Because I attended those classes. I was like, these are a lot of platforms. So yeah, bringing that back would be helpful, because it helped me a lot. Yeah. Sorry.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Nault, and thank you for all the comments.
Thank you to the committee too,
yeah, thank
all the
you.
team that was a part of this process. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. So we are at approval of minutes. So we have the minutes for the open session meeting November 2nd, 2022. This is one that got past us, Kathy.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Try to periodically ensure we captured them all. We sometimes can't hear you. Sorry. Yes, it is one that as we try to periodically ensure we've captured them all, we discovered this one got overlooked somehow.
Thank you. All right, this was a board workshop from 2022. So we have the board, like a motion to approve for November 2nd, 2022.
Yeah, motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments, questions on the motion?
Wait, we need a pass. We weren't here.
Yep, so I'll take it as a roll call.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay,
Pass.
Ms. Fabian,
Pass.
President Ewing.
Yes, minutes are approved. Item 8B, approval of minutes of the regular open session meeting for April 23rd, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Mr. McBride. Any comments, questions on the motion?
I also was not at this meeting.
Roll call.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Fabian,
Pass.
Ms. Lindsay,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, item approved, or minutes are approved. Item 8C, approval of the minutes for the special open session meeting, May 21st, 2024.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Hannah. I was not present. Comments or questions, corrections, roll call.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride,
Yes.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Fabian,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Pass. Minutes are approved. We are now at the opportunity for public comment. On the screens around the room, there'll be a clock. Individuals wishing to address the board will have 3 minutes. We do ask that you refrain from mentioning student and staff member names in your remarks and want to remind all speakers of civility. If you need translation services will be provided to you, and you will get an additional 3 minutes for a total of 6 to allow for translation. I'm going to call names 3 at a time. I'm going to ask that you all line up on the side of the room in order to expedite the process. First name is Justin Simon, Luke Krastowski, and Dina Kessler. And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me on the microphone. Mr. Simon, whenever you start speaking, your time will begin.
Good evening, board, community members, educators. I'm Justin Simon, just finished my 16th year here in Waukegan and hopefully have many, many more to go.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
I want to commend the Board of Education for making the change in board policy regarding rank and senior honors. This is a positive change for our students as it will lessen anxiety and promote students taking courses that they want to take rather than taking courses that solely just have an additional GPA rate. Students' mental health and well-being is important. This change is a great step towards assisting our students. Additionally, the promotion policy is a good step forward in assisting our students who unfortunately have encountered obstacles. Again, I say it's a good step forward. There's additional work that we need to do to make sure our students are successful for career and beyond. Bear with me as this section was hastily rewritten because of a slight pivot in today's agenda. But the key part that I want to express is that this community and its students rise to the challenges put in front of them. In my 16 years, I've been witness to this time and time again. Waukegan will rise to the challenge that we place in front of it.
That's right.
So, all of the educators here, all of the individuals in this room, I believe would hold this truth to be true. However, the adolescent mind is a fickle one, and it needs to be pushed. If not, it finds the easiest way out. I have encountered future accountants and bookmakers who have made gorgeous spreadsheets detailing for me the least amount of work they need to do possible to receive the grade they want to do. So as we move forward, I challenge this community and this board to keep our standards high and challenge our students. Do not provide a way out, but way up. Thank you.
Next name, Luke, and pronounce your last name for me, Luke.
Kwiatkowski.
Kwiatkowski. Thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Hi, I'm Luke Kwiatkowski. I'm a first-year teacher at Waukegan High School and a member of the Waukegan Teachers Union.
Yeah.
Thank you. I only have 3 minutes. Please keep it to a minimum. Anyway, I just wanted to say I do commend what you've done to change the policy coming into today. That was what I was going to speak on. However, seeing that it is no longer 50% minimum grade to now back to 0%, I do think, and I echo what Justin Simon said about keeping our standards high for our students, and they will meet us where we set the standards. So thank you again, and I yield my time.
Ms. Kessler, whenever you start speaking, your time will begin.
Okay. Hello, my name is Dina Kessler, and I've been teaching personal finance at Waukegan High School for 18 years, and I'm a proud union member. Personal finance, a course required in the state of Illinois, has been a graduation requirement at Waukegan High School for decades. Last year, the requirements for personal finance were drastically changed. As of August 11, 2023, students at Waukegan High School need only be enrolled in the course to satisfy the personal finance requirement. Students no longer need to pass the class, they do not need to complete any assignments, and they do not even need to attend class to satisfy their graduation requirement. All they need to do is be on the roster. The present situation is a disincentive and a disservice to our students. On May 17th, I saw students graduate and accept diplomas that had earned a 0 in my class and may have been present only 1 or 2 times in total. The importance of personal finance is essential to create fiscally responsible members of society. It is also the key to helping our students escape a life of poverty. The damage this is doing to our student body is immense and permanent. If our students do not attend class, pay attention, or do any classwork, they will not learn the skills necessary to live within their economic means. They will not learn how to avoid credit card debt, how to do their taxes, nor create a budget. They will not be able to identify what auto insurance they need, what lease is for renting, or how to use time as a tool to save for retirement. Because of the new policy, attendance is low and failure is high. After calculating final grades for the second semester, 46% of my students failed personal finance. Many of them did not turn in 1 assignment and understood they had no incentive to do so. Students are not being taught the most valuable lesson. Their decisions have consequences. If we continue instilling in them the idea that they do not have to be accountable or put in any effort to succeed, they will eventually suffer irreparable damage. Are we teaching our students that they can join the workforce and not have to perform or even show up? This will only be exacerbated next year if the students will receive a 50% grade for their non-attendance and lack of participation. If we want to prepare students for the real world, we should insist that our students be required to produce quality work and hold them accountable for their actions. According to Waukegan Public Schools, their mission statement, we should expect excellence from all involved. Unfortunately, we're not expecting excellence, and in the case of the students that does not attend class, we are not even expecting a minimal amount of effort. By reducing the graduation requirements and not insisting that our students pass, attend, and go to class, we are the ones failing them, but the students are the ones who will suffer. Those who insist that these policies were created to create more equity amongst the students seem to forget that in Waukegan, like many other communities, it is not a cultural divide that creates inequality, but an economic divide between those who have economic security and those who do not. This course is specifically designed to close that divide. Please consider reinstating the long-established course requirement of passing the class as a graduation requirement, or at the very least, make attendance and effort mandatory.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler. Next 3 names: John Hasners, Victor Chang, and Laura DeJong. And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me on the podium.
Hello, my name is John Hasners, and I'm a math teacher and elected union representative at Waukegan High School, and also a resident of Waukegan. Like others, I had a whole statement prepared to discuss Policy 5212. My plea was again that you would not entertain any further readings of that policy until either teacher voices had been heard or until that line had been stricken. You have done that, and I think that you do deserve a thank you. I do appreciate that you have heard our voices as quickly as you have and responded as quickly as you have instead of making us all wait. I think that is is definitely a sign of good faith, and we appreciate that. I also recognize after last week's conversations, I know that multiple members on the board are very much in favor of this policy, but you have still halted it and to not move forward with it because you know it is important to actually hear more teacher voices. Again, I very much appreciate that and hope that we understand whatever caused it that made teachers not be heard in this one, that those things be corrected in the future. Last week I did mention that I was running a survey on this. If the board is interested in seeing those survey results, I'm still happy to provide them. Currently, 91% of teachers are not in support of this policy as it stands. I will also share with you the comments that teachers had on this policy. When you look over the benefits, when I ask teachers the benefits, I hope you notice that they actually understand what this policy is trying to do. Just a lot of us don't agree with it. When you look over the concerns, you will see that a lot of teachers present ethical questions. As Mr. Simon had pointed out before, that we are concerned about the lowering of standards. We are very much concerned about how students will interpret this message. As I spoke last week, I am concerned that the 50% rule communicates to our students that we don't believe in them. I really think that any student can get to a 50% on their own without me having to set that floor for them. So I'm really very much concerned that that sends the message that we don't believe in you, we don't think you'll take these opportunities, and you won't do that. So again, and I do take it as these conversations can be open. I know it's going to be difficult to sway the minds of 91% of our teachers, but I take it in good faith that since the board has put a pin in this and saved it for later, I put in good faith we will approach with open minds and willing to have a conversation and finding the best of this. As one other side note regarding policy 5212, much less controversial is the section about creating common assessment standards and for teachers and all of those things. Much less of a concern, but I do have an issue that it does say that we would start that in the 2024 academic year, which would be very difficult for all of us to have our voices heard in those conversations. Maybe we need to begin that later. Thank you.
Mr. Chang.
Dear Superintendent Placencia and members of the school board, my name is Victor Cheng, a teacher for 11 years at Waukegan High School and a proud member of the Waukegan Teachers Union. I fully support that board policy 5212 regarding grading practices will retain a 0 as the grading floor and that teachers will be involved in the revision process in the fall. So again, thank you so much for your super responsive feedback, especially given the number of teachers here representing our concern. And in preparation for my remarks, I reviewed the research supporting both sides of the argument. One critique on the statistics side is that student assignments are typically entered as points and not percentages. So while the math supports the difficulty of averaging 0%, a 0 in several 5-point assignments can be made up by one single 75-point assignment. Ultimately, the research on both sides maintains that grades measure work. And Elaine Allensworth is the director in charge of the 5 Essential Survey and the Network for College Success. Her 2020 research states that high school GPA is a stronger predictor for college success because grades measure a wider variety of skills, including effort over an entire semester in many different types of classes, and demonstration of academic skills through multiple formats. While her research focused on GPA versus college entrance exams, we can extrapolate how grades and GPA reflect work ethic. So in support of the promotion policy presented by Dr. Nault, having a rolling GPA starting in 6th grade would reflect a student's full work ethic. Starting in 6th grade emphasizes early importance. Holistic GPA, which includes all classes, also equally values all classes. And ideally, these values would continue to roll upwards into high school. Building off Ms. Kessler's comments about personal finance, another class that falls into that loophole is health. And having been part of the graduation committee, requirement committee, one of my health friends decides to hit me over the head many times and saying, why isn't health a graduation requirement any longer? And I said, oops, that's my bad. But I would like to bring that up as well. So ultimately, grades matter. Grades measure students' work. And I teach my students to be college and career ready, to persevere and work towards a goal and take that next right step towards a goal, not to be warped halfway there. And to develop the grit and the determination to overcome hopeless emotions. Thank you, administration, for your responsiveness, and board members for your audience and service for our community.
Lauren DeJean.
Hello, hi, my name is Lauren DeJean. I am a Waukegan educator going into my 7th year with the district and a proud union member. I want to second a lot of what other people have mentioned during these comments. Thank you for listening to the concerns that have been said about the 50% grading policy. I think we can all agree that we are all here for students and we all want what's best for them. And I think this is a wonderful sign of communicating and working together to make sure that we bring that to reality. Just commenting and again, seconding about some of the things that have been said, I truly believe that the standards we set for students are that they're more than capable of raising to them. I have had many students of mine comment about how they have felt like the bar has been lowered for them over the course of the year or so. And I want them to know that they are capable, that they are smart, and that they can achieve anything. And I think that further discussion about this 50% grading policy will enable us to set that message to our students that they are capable of anything. Thank you so much for your time.
Next 3 names are Ray Vukovic, Sherry Perkowitz, and Mike Tanner in that order.
Good evening. The first thing is item 8A somehow got overlooked. Your board attorney, that's what, minutes from November 2nd, 2022, almost 19 months ago. They're supposed to have been done a long time ago. This isn't the first time we've heard this. Do you accept that? It's the lawyer and the superintendent are responsible for board minutes. It's the official minutes of this organization. They are responsible. Hold them accountable. You've got teachers here. Last week, school ended. Grades are due. How long could you go without getting grades in before you get written up? But here, at this level, they go month after month, and oh, it was a mistake, we missed it, and the board just lets it happen. Now, that particular meeting, well, first of all, Mr. President, you weren't at the special meeting last week, and I made the board aware that there was a general opinion from the Attorney General's office regarding all public bodies in Illinois and closed session minutes. In order for them to be approved, they have to be approved at an open meeting. This district has never approved minutes. So you're way behind on that, and you need to get going. This meeting that you just approved, the open minutes, that should be your very first one. In 2 weeks, you should come back with the closed minutes because that item is done. It was the superintendent's evaluation, or actually goals, I think it was, which you can't discuss in closed session anymore. As far as setting goals, has to be done in a public meeting. But that particular one, you've given her a raise, you've given her a bonus, so there shouldn't be anything there that shouldn't be made available to the public. So you'd need to start coming out with that kind of stuff there. Tomorrow night, you've got an evaluation session with the superintendent. One thing I asked you to go back and look at, when she came in here 8 years ago, there was her employment application stated that by June of 2016, she would have a doctorate degree. Where is it? I know it's not required to hold the position, but she told the board at the time that she expected to have it. If you got hired and told people I'd have something in a few months, and here it is 8 years later and you don't have it. You ought to be considering that in the evaluation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vukovic. Sherry Perkowitz.
I'm Sherry Perkowitz. I am a 16-year district teacher and a proud union member. My job at the school has been the vocational program. And as a vocational teacher and a job coach for our students, I have never once told them not to sweat an employee evaluation, okay? Because in reality, you realize that an employee evaluation is the same as a report card. And in an employee evaluation, you do not automatically get a 50% if you do not show up for work. You do not get a 50% on your employee review if you are not doing your job, if you are not completing your assigned tasks. Think about your own kids when they went off to their first jobs. If they didn't show up for work, did they get an automatic free pass? No. If you don't do your job, if you don't show up, if you don't turn in your work or your assignments, you get a 0. You get a 0 because you have earned it. Not because somebody gave it to you. A mean boss did not just simply tell you to go. You didn't show up. You didn't do your work, and you got a 0. And that is no different than any of our students or our kids who walk into our classrooms. When you don't do the work, you get a 0. We need to set our students up for the reality of the workplace. The reality that when they go to work, if they don't do it, and they don't do it the way they're supposed to, there are repercussions. There are consequences. And these teachers who are sitting in front of you are trying to teach them that. But when you take that away from us by giving these kids a free pass, we're not teaching them anything. We are not teaching them what it's going to be like to be an adult, which is why students turn into young adults that go through job after job after job. At the end of the year, they've gone through maybe 5 or 6 jobs. They can't leave their cell phones alone. They're just not doing it, and we're not teaching them. So please, help us raise the bar. Don't keep dropping it, okay? 50% is not helping. Thank you.
Mr. Tanner.
Mike Tanner, I'm the engineering teacher at Brookside. Hi, Anita. I surveyed teachers out there that are already in districts using this. And I got more than 100 responses. And it was pretty much universally disliked. That's not a surprise. Some of the teachers were pretty ambivalent. Yeah, it helps some students. We understand that, we don't want kids to get in a hole. I hear 0 a lot tonight. Believe it or not, we don't like zeros. Okay, it sounds like we love zeros. We don't. But comments were teachers felt personal shame. They were ashamed of themselves to put a grade in that the student didn't work for them. Like, they had to look at themselves in the mirror. They didn't want to. Parents didn't like it because they would look at Infinite Campus. They couldn't tell which assignments were missing because they all had 50s. Is that missing or not? They couldn't tell. Teachers, let's see, parents. A lot of districts went back on it after 3 or 5 years. So I think we all breathed a sigh of relief a couple hours ago when it was announced that, we're moving back on the decision and we're going to talk about it a little bit more, we all thought, oh, good, thank you. I would encourage the board to involve the union, and we do have the same goal, and we're the ones that got to put it in place. So just going forward, I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I have a lot of specifics that I've discussed with one or two people, but I think there is a path to success that's there, and we can get there without spending a lot of money. To answer your question, Anita, about the new promotion policy, my kids are going to know it. It's going to be on their final exam. How many credits to get to Washington? Because I actually had a student ask me this year, because she had failed everything, am I going to Washington next year? Well, yeah, we don't keep people back. Well, that answer's changed now. So my kids will know. Everyone has a lot of work to do. I appreciate what you do. Believe it or not, I served on a school board at one time. So, thank you.
Boats? A boat? A boat? A boat?
I did build one a couple years ago.
Huh?
I did build one a couple years
I
ago.
know.
Yeah.
Another one.
You want another one?
Airplane.
Thank you.
My 3 minutes are up. My first teaching job was aviation, and I turned it down because I did not want to build an airplane.
Thank you, Mr.
But that was
Tanner.
my first offer.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Final three names in order: Huntsman Manning, Rayon Edwards, and Randy Sabecki.
Hi, Huntsman Manning. I'm a counselor at Washington campus, so I have a little bit different perspective, but I also taught French for 10 years before that, so I also have a common perspective. One of the things that they teach you in grad school is that kids need consequences. You don't turn in something, as Sherry just said a moment ago. You don't do your work, you don't deserve credit for it. That will not help them in adult life. And there are, of course, factors that are beyond a student's control. If a student literally can't take a test for whatever reason, I don't think any teacher would ever turn a student away. They would definitely allow a kid to make that up, and a lot of them will make it easy for them to do that. Like they'll say that, well, I can give examples of what I used to do. I would give a student a hall pass, and I would say, okay, go to study hall, check in there, and then come back here. Make sure you're not marked absent, tell the teacher what you're doing, and come back. Or I would say, come see me during lunch or something. And a lot of times they would eat first and then come, or they would come to my room first, and then they would eat when the line gets lower. Just whatever works. I assume my colleagues are doing the same thing. I learned it from them. So, yeah, the factors beyond their control can at least be mitigated. That's part of the reason why they wanted to do the 50% floor. Also, adversity breeds strength, and kids need a challenging and rigorous curriculum. And we're kind of taking some of the rigor out of it by doing this. And to prepare for adult life, I realize I'm kind of repeating what some of my colleagues have said. To give the example, someone already gave a mathematical example, but I would like to give a very simple one. If you take two 10-point quizzes, you don't do anything on one. You get a 0%. It's recorded as missing. On the other one, if you get a 70%, a C minus, that averages together to be the 60%, which would then be passing. But in a raw score, that would realistically be only 35%. You're only literally earning 7 points out of 20, which is 35%. And that's not going to be good enough for anything. Can you imagine if you only did 35% of what your drill sergeant tells you to do? Okay, what would happen? Okay, and Mr. Ewing mentioned earlier, he said something about standards-based grading. And I don't think there is a standard which would allow 35%, while demonstrating 35% mastery of the material would be good enough. So that is realistically what will happen. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Mr.
Good
Edwards.
evening, board. You know what's funny to me is we talking about this policy. I want to know who created it, because whoever did, we need to just fire everybody. What is we teaching these babies? Y'all done already lowered the credits. What makes y'all think colleges is even going to want to look at our kids? Especially when they looking at the districts around. So to answer a lot of you teachers' questions, they don't care. We got staff members over here forging documentation. They don't care. We got you teachers being treated inhumane, being locked downstairs in rooms when you don't want to comply with what they want you to do. So my proposal to this administration is, if you guys want to be teachers, step out that road and go put on some teacher shoes. Because they creating all these policies, and it drives me crazy that y'all not talking to the people who's on the front line, and that's them. They do more work than all of y'all. I came to these last few meetings and I said to y'all, take the gloves off, right? Take them off. We using this diversity, equity, and inclusion. This shit is making me mad. Because those words have been in the dictionary. And so now it sounds good and we want to keep throwing it up. Don't keep using that for my black babies, because that ain't going to help them in the real world. They ain't going to be able to run in nobody's face talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're not. Just like everything else, those words going to have an expiration date. Dr. Nas, I hear you talk about this policy and we're going to reach out to parents after 5 weeks. Maybe that's the problem. Because I deal with kids every day, and so I notice daily when things change. I don't want to wait 3-4 weeks to say something changed, because then it's too late. And the bottom line is this: it seems to me that y'all are behind on everything. Everything. Presentations come and then y'all want this board to rush and approve it. Everything. And so one job the superintendent and the lawyer got is the minutes. And that man, Mr. Vukovich, come up here every meeting and talk about it. And y'all still can't get that right. That's partially because everybody just walks around and flaunts in Lincoln Center. Come and go as they please, but y'all clocking their checks. You clocking their time. You making sure when they supposed to be where they supposed to be. How about we get them a time card too and make them swipe it, so we can keep track of them too? Because we paying them more money than we paying them, and I think it's time we start knowing where we getting our money's worth. Because we talking about goals, so I'm going to for you because I want to look at the last goals, because y'all allow her to change those. And it seems to me that we're making goals that's already damn completed, bro. I'm disgusted in this board.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Sabecki.
Good evening. I also want to talk about that policy. It's ridiculous. To give a kid 50%, and I'm going to use my own kid as an example, because he's lazy. He graduated this year. Am I proud to say he's lazy? Nope. Because he would take the least amount out. Just like I'm not a favor of the credits being dropped. Because a lot of these students say, hey, I only got to get 17 credits, that's all I'm getting. We lower the standards. Colleges ain't lowering the standards. We talk about having our kids college ready. How? You don't do your assignment in college? They taking your money and they'll see you again next year. You ain't getting nothing. And we talk about everyone has a seat at the table. When's it going to start? Because it seems like a lot of these policies, a lot of people are missing at these tables. Teachers, parents. The teachers ain't the only ones that need buy-in. So do the parents. Those are our students in those classrooms. And I don't agree with it at all. And we keep saying, well, 50% is still failing. Yeah, but it's only 10% from passing. And it's ridiculous. I know this board has been used to running on this 50%. Because a lot of people, half our administrators during the pandemic showed up to work 50% of the time, but got paid. Our superintendent met 3 of 5 goals, a little more than 50%. She got paid. We need to stop and think about what we're doing to these kids. They go to work, they don't do their job, they ain't getting half their paycheck for not showing up. And we talk about the retention policy. I want to talk on that a little bit too. It's nice if everything's going to actually be followed. Because I remember during the pandemic when we sat here for hours listening to that presentation of all the supports these students were supposed to get and didn't get. My kid had COVID 4 times. 4. And he was at home. He never got a support, never got a call. This year, he almost didn't graduate. I wasn't notified all year. Yeah, I get text messages from the school saying that your students missing these assignments. 3-4 weeks before the end of the year is when I forgot my first telephone call from any administrator at that building or counselor. And that's unacceptable because you know what? I'm very involved. I'm at every one of these meetings. I check Infinite Campus probably 20 times a day. So I am involved. For a principal to tell me that, we send a missing assignment thing home, how do you know those parents are getting emails? A lot of the parents, as we say, don't even speak English. It's the kids that translate for the parents. Pick up the telephone. Let's call the parents.
Thank you, Mr. Sabecki. This concludes our public comment. We do appreciate everybody who came out and took time this evening. We are going to continue with our agenda, and then Superintendent, for things that require a follow-up, please have your staff members connect with those individuals. For the consent agenda, these items have been previously discussed and or are considered non-controversial. Any board member could request that any item be held over for and voted on separately for any reason. At this time, would any board members like to vote on any of those items separately? Please give me the letter. Seeing if there are none, I would like to approve items 10 A through W.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle. Second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments, questions on the motion?
I just want to, I'm sorry, my machine went off. Wait, hold on, Mr. President, I apologize. Now, all of these, the different professional development requests and stuff, right? Are these going off-site or are they virtual? I know some of them are virtual, and but okay. And I had one question. The Waukegan High School, that's S. Waukegan High School psychology teachers. Now, are those like the classroom, the teachers that teach psychology? Is that what this is? And not about the psychologists being called teachers? Which one is it?
This is an advanced placement summer institute for psychology teachers, and it has the teachers' names to it. So if you look at the item, it is
Right,
there.
I looked at it, but I couldn't understand, I couldn't get clarity as if they are the psychologist in the district, or are they classroom psychologists? Okay, gotcha. Teachers. Okay.
They're teachers.
Okay.
Thank you. So, you mentioned it, Ms. Hannah. I don't know if you want to go, but some would be virtual, some are in person. So this is a combination of both.
The what?
Some are virtual and some are in person. You talked about some of the.
Right, and I was just wondering if these are off-site.
Many of them are.
Okay, and yeah, and just a comment while we're waiting on Dr. Sario. Okay, we're going to have to get a handle on the spending of the professional development. I'm not denying that teachers may need it, or whoever need it, but we're going to have to try to come together and talk about a different way to accomplish this, because we are kind of getting into an area where we're going to have to clamp down on our spending because of the because money isn't as readily flowing as it was before. And so all I'm saying is that we are going to have to talk about a different way to reteach the skills that the professional development is giving to our staff and our teachers because of the financial piece.
So I'm going to try to help address this. Each department looks at a budget and they allocate monies for whether it's supplies, materials, PD, etc. So when you look at our budgets, you'll see that staff has allocated that. Currently, the administration has not taken a stand or has not made a recommendation to the board that we need to put a moratorium on professional development. I have heard, Ms. Hannah, you brought that up a number of times. I don't know where the feeling, if the board wants to have that conversation, that's a conversation that the board can have. But at this time, the administration does not feel that we're overspending on professional development. We feel that the professional development our staff is going to is intentional, aligns with the budget, aligns with the vision and mission, also aligns with the professional development cycle that the staff is, it depends on what areas, right? So you're going to see part of this is, one is STARS, other one, this is an AP. There's different ones. Please know that they are vetted by either the I'm just going to say supervisor or the manager of whoever is requesting it to see if it will be brought forward.
And I appreciate that, Superintendent. But on the other hand, my duty as a board member, I have to be be responsible for the fiduciary solvency of our district, and I have been in understanding of school finances for many years, and trust me, when I say it's time for us to tighten our belt, we need to tighten our belt, and with spending, wherever it comes from, we need to start tightening our belt.
To reinforce that, as we go through the budget process and we have our first budget meeting, I would like the board members to understand we do strategic-based budgeting. It is about priorities, to Ms. Hannah's point. You cannot spend on everything indefinitely. And I also want to understand and echo the administration, is there's going to have to be prioritizations made. I don't think that we can make the recommendation cut spending by 12%, right? Cut spending by 20%. But I do know that we have to be strategic and intentional about where we put our resources. And I think that's the message. So do we have to do this specific PD? Are there cheaper options, right? Do we, and if the answer is no, we have to do that kind, I always put the answer back on the board and administration, then what else are we cutting, right? Because Miss Polk and team, there's always that line of all of the things that we need and where the money stops. And so I go back to is part of that strategic based budgeting is how we have been able to manage and float our budget throughout these years is because we are intentional about where we put the resources. So both things are correct is as we tighten the belt, I just don't want us to get to the point to say we're tightening across the board. It may be this area, and if it is, Board of Education, we don't even need a policy. We could draft a resolution, put a timeline on there for it to be reviewed, and that's what it is. But I wouldn't want to make that decision in isolation without taking into consideration some of those other things that the superintendent mentioned.
Right, and please, I did not say any kind of moratorium.
No, I'm not putting words in your mouth.
I didn't say that.
Nope.
Okay, yeah, but no, I did not say that. But I'm just simply saying that look, the money is not coming in the way that it was. So we just have to be intentional as to what we are spending on.
Yes,
Noted,
ma'am.
Ms. Hannah.
Roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Yoder?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item A, renewal of 95% correspondence materials for grades 3 through 5. B, renewal of school links. C, renewal of Newsela for grades 6 through 12. D, approve renewal of NWA MAP growth assessments for 24-25. E, approval of renewal Amplify Education reading assessments 24-25. F, approve renewal of Illuminate Education's DNA for 24-25. G, approval of renewal of Education Advanced Inc. Cardonics 24-25. H, approval of revision of previously approved EAB District Leadership Forum Partnership Agreement. I, teaching through problem solving TTP teacher education course for K through 5, 6 through 8. J, purchase of laptops for new teachers phase 1. K, ITS mental VoIP phone system upgrades. L, renewal of Gaggle contract. M, expeditionary learning tier 1 literacy professional development from Better Lessons grades 6 through 8. N, international baccalaureate middle years program training for curriculum coordinators and leaders grades 6 through 12. O, College Board Summer Training Session at Loyola University in Chicago, July 8th through 12th. P, WIN trainer attendance at International Society for Technology and Education in Denver, Colorado, dates listed. Q, approval to attend Network for College Success National Freshman Success Institute. R, approval of STARS program staff to attend the 21st Century STARS Center Summer Symposium. S, Waukegan High School Psychology Teachers Professional Development request. T, Waukegan High School Social Studies Teacher Professional Development request. U, approval to purchase furniture and supplies for 2 preschool classrooms. V, approval to purchase furniture and supplies for 3 full-day classrooms. And W, Lulu Ripberger Scholarship and Alan Larson Musical Memorial Scholarship. We also have the consent agenda for operations, items A through F. Would any board members like to vote on any of the items separately?
I just want to make a comment. Excellent reading of that very long list.
Never mind, I was going to say something. Well, a proud Waukegan graduate. A proud Waukegan graduate. Consent agenda operations, items 11A through F. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms.
Second.
Hannah and seconded by Mr. Riddle. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I have a comment for E because it was brought up during public comment, or not public comment, during our last meeting with regard to the electricity being provided to the marquee sign. So I'm glad that note is in there that will be done this summer. Because it is electrical, Mr. Moten, can you confirm, is this going to be after the summer schools are closed and children are not on the property while they're getting that laid out there?
Mr. Moulton said it won't disrupt summer school. The question is, will the
Yeah.
work take place meanwhile summer school is in session?
Yeah. So not about disrupt, just
So
Is
the
it
question, the
there?
answer is yes. And how are you going to ensure that it is blocked off and safe for
Yes.
students that are attending those schools?
Thank you for anticipating my meeting. Super.
Yes. So the goal is not to impact summer school. However, we are anticipating this will take place the second week of June, but we will have take the necessary safety precautions so that this is not near any play areas. We will adjust according to the summer school schedule.
Okay, and will parents be notified?
When we finalize the dates, we will make sure the schools communicate that to the parents.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. We go to item B. Molly comment is, I'm excited to see this happen. Going back to some of the conversations that we talked about, even what Ms. Hannah just mentioned, is we should be looking at opportunities in order to support our staff members, but also save the district for money and resources whenever possible. So I am excited to see this move forward. Roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, items approved, motion carries. Item 11A, approval of facility rental waiver request for Focus. Thank you. See you in attendance. Appreciate you for coming. B, approval of USI Insurance Services temporary broker of record agreement. Again, thank you for coming. C, approval of board resolution annual waiver of facilities use free for nonprofits. Thank you for all of those partners. D, approval of operations, vehicle purchase. E, approval of Glenwood and Andrew Cook Elementary School marquee signs. And F, approval of change order for asbestos abatement. We have purchases and contracts. There are two here. Is anyone opposed to taking those two as an item?
We had good conversation at the committee meetings, and so we could. I'm in favor of.
Are you opposed, Ms. Lindsay? Ms.
I'm
Fabian?
not opposed, I just have a comment.
All right, then let's, if we get a motion for items 12A and B.
Moved.
Motion by Ms. Lindsay.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fabian. Comments or questions? Ms. Fabian?
So my only comment is I am going to vote yes on the transportation of PACE. I know that is absolutely needed, but going forward, if we can look at that annual 2% increase, if there's something that we can do to look at the terms of our contract, because I don't know how long that's been standing, and I do know student numbers have been fluctuating and the use of our passes have been fluctuating, as well as reduced routes. So if we can, next time around, try to negotiate something lower if we could.
Noted.
I have a question on this one as well. So it was hard for me to hear some of the conversation, but I did go back and re-listen. But I've also gotten a couple of inquiries with regard to the passes. I don't know if Miss Williams is, I see you. Sorry, that was creepy. Is there a limit to how often students can use the passes per day or per week while they're valid? I understand from last week's meeting that if they're part of regular school, it'll shut off at the end of school. If they're part of summer school, they'll get an additional pass to cover that period of time, etc. But is there a limited number of times a day or a week that they can use those passes?
No, not during the school year, no.
Okay, but during summer school there is?
So the high school purchase their tickets separately. I don't know how they purchase them, but it should be the same process.
Okay, so there shouldn't be a limit on them using it, and if there is...
There isn't a limit.
Okay. So if families have issues, they should contact PACE, or are you at the transportation
As far as
office?
the pass is not working?
Yeah.
PACE.
Okay.
To
Okay.
dispatcher.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Williams.
You're welcome.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Personnel items, I'll take these separate. I would be comfortable taking them together, but item 13A, attendance at Wired Differently Trauma-Informed Schools Conference in Chicago. Read the recommended action. Superintendent.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the attendance of board member Jeff McBride at the Wired Differently Trauma-Informed Schools Conference from November 6th through the 9th, 2024 in Chicago with the estimated cost of $1,800, which includes lodging, registration fees, and per diem.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hannah. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
No, with the same rationale that I've used previously. I believe this would be best used for our staff to inform the board.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item 13B, engagement of
Board
legal.
President, just a point of order. I don't know that we read into the record 12A and B.
I did not, thank you. For the record, item 12A, Amplify Language Studio ESL resource for monolingual dual language and STEP classrooms, grade K through 5, and B, approval of renewal of PACE Regional Transportation Authority Agreement 2024 through 2025 school year, recommended actions as presented. Personnel items, we are at item 13B, engagement of legal counsel, environmental matters.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the appointment of Harvey Sheldon, PA, to maintain the legal counsel and advice provided in matters associated with Yeoman Creek environmental remediation obligations and the associated solar energy project.
I
Motion
make a
to approve.
motion. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Yeah.
And I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, second by Ms. Hannah. Comments or questions?
Just glad to see that we are finally putting some time limits on this organization that is working with us to try to bring solar power to Yeoman Creek Environmental, and that we have Harvey Sheldon as our, we're retaining him as our attorney to pursue this along with the remediation group that he works with. Thank you.
And my comment in reference to Mr. Sheldon, I've been working with Mr. Sheldon for a very, very long time under with Yeoman Creek, and went through with the remediation of it and the whole thing. And so I'm glad that he will be in charge of this, and I have the confidence that he will make sure that the district is represented well.
I have an additional comment. I just want to preemptively thank the board for presumably approving this, because it's also fiscally responsible when someone has this much amount. I can't talk today. When someone has this amount of background knowledge, we don't have to get them up to speed to carry the torch. So it's a very fiscally responsible decision.
Right.
Roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. C, we're holding, and then D, we got personnel for 13D.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendations to approve the appointments, retirements, retirement extensions, and accept the resignations as found on schedules F1002, L949, and G660.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Fabian. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
Yes, and I just want to commend one of our teachers that I personally experienced. To see that retirement is good for you, but sad for me because my kids won't get you. That's it.
Thank you. And we do have one administrative appointment.
Oh, I thought we're not supposed to say that.
Yes. Oh, Fabian, were you a yes? Did
Yes.
we? And then.
President Ewing?
Yes, my bad. Item approved, motion carries. We have Miss Jessica Lustana.
I don't see your present.
I'm going to go with the board president's pronunciation. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jessica Lustano, Director of Student Services, that will be her new title, who previously served at Harvard Community School, District 50. She will now be, title change, Director of Students. No, she serves as Director of Student Services at the Harvard Community School, District 50. She will now be our new Child Fine Coordinator at the Welcome Center with a starting salary of $123,000. Congratulations, Ms. Lastanu.
I'm excited that it's finally filled.
Awesome. All right. And if we get the agenda back up. Mr. Vukovic, who would have thought today we had a financial hearing in District 60 with a $30 million bond, and I think you are the only community representative present. So item 16A, I'd like to open the public hearing concerning the intent of the board to issue up to $30 million of working cash fund bonds of the district. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Lindsay.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fabian. Comments, questions? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The hearing is now open. At this point time, we have Ms. Polk, and after she makes whatever remarks she has prepared, I'll open the floor up to any board members or community members or staff members who have questions. Go ahead, Ms. Polk.
Board President, Board Member Superintendent, colleagues and community members, it is our pleasure to have Mr. Kyle Harding here with us tonight to help to answer whatever questions that may come up. We presented this information at a previous board meeting, but we are subject to whatever questions exist at this time.
So Mr. Harding is prepared. Board is prepared. You need a microphone, Mr. Vukovic. We have a mic. We got one for you.
As I stated last week at the committee meeting, $30 million, it's a lot of money, but you probably $300 million, you probably would spend all of that too. You got a lot of old buildings in this district, and people note that. You know, we said the dog pound is 96 years old, and that was built for a school, and you got to keep it up. All the other buildings were built as schools, just like this building. People say, oh, you know, it's old, it's 100 years old. The board, previous boards, majority of you, at the superintendent's request, you purchased an 85-year-old bank building and have spent millions and millions of dollars on it. So I think, you know, as you go forward here with spending this $30 million, you really need to look at how you're going to do the best for what we have. And if you're looking at, I see you're hiring a real estate expert later tonight. I hope you're not buying any more old buildings. If you're going to build something, build it new. There really is no big savings by buying something and try to reconvert it. But we do have an old buildings, and you got to keep them up. So that's all I have to say.
You heard that, Ms. Polk. Mr. Vukovic is going to help me pass a referendum, but I did. And I'm joking, Mr. Vukovic. I do thank you for the referendum that you have helped in the past, and I appreciate the dedication in which you've supported Waukegan Public Schools, and I mean that. But we do, I echo those sentiments as we look, and I've given this analogy, and I think Ms. Polk has as well, is how many times are you going to replace the engine before you get a new car? So I appreciate that. Any other comments or questions related to this item?
I just want to know, before I say okay to this, I want to know, okay, the bond for the working cash, right? What plans do we have for that $30 million?
Through the Capital Development Committee, there's a prioritization list of projects, and Mr. Moulton can chime in, but when we last looked at the list for the 10-year life safety, it was $120 million worth of projects, right? So the board, with the our support of the superintendent, put $60 million, if not more, without going out for any bonds, into capital improvements over the last few years. It's actually much more than that. And so we've started doing the work, and now we're at a point that if we're going to continue to do that work, we have to go out for a bond. That's coupled with the fact that we've not raised taxes for the last 4 years. And so that's compounded. We lose that money every year because the base remains the same. And so we've tried very hard to do what the board has willed us to do, but now we can't do it anymore.
Okay, and so with that, thank you for the mountain. Okay.
I have to climb the mountain in order so we can understand.
Anyway, okay, you mentioned the capital projects.
Yeah.
Okay, and the 10-year life safety.
Yes.
Okay, and I guess this is a Superintendent Mr. Moten question. At this point, because we've been working on this 10-year life safety issue for a while, okay? And so I am at the point where I want to see the 10-year life safety documents, okay? The items that were there. I know we had, if I can remember, we were red, yellow, and blue, or some numbers, and some colors. And I want to know, are we done with those first ones? Where are we with the second group? And where are we with that third group? And you know, in terms of the life safety, because life safety is totally different from acquisition of a building and putting dollars into that building. That, you know, because I guess what I'm trying to say is we took on another task before we finished with that 10-year life safety project. And this is just my opinion, okay, as a board member, okay, that those life safety issues that's mandated, that we have done at particular times, that those things should have been prioritized over the acquisition of the building. Totally, we can talk about that different, but right now, I just want to know where we are in that 10-year life safety project.
So thank you for the question, Ms. Hannah. Good evening, board members, staff, community, superintendent. So we've progressed well in that. In a previous meeting, we did share that those identifiers were A, B, C1, and C2.
Okay.
So the A's were to be done in the first year. We did request an extension with Dr. Anderson at the time because of the volume of work. And then the B's were 5 to 6 years, and the C1 and C2 were recommendations. At the time that we did the 2016 10-year life safety assessment, we also had a facilities assessment done, which is where the recommendations came from. And really, the recommendations is what generated a lot of the basis for the 10-year capital improvement plan. The A's, we provided a status update. We're happy to share again that we're done within the first 2 years with the extension. And then the B's and the C's we incorporated in the 10-year life safety plan. And it was meant to be flexible and ongoing. This type of work, Ms. Hannah and the rest of the board members, is really due to the age of our buildings, as Mr. Vukovic mentioned. It's really a never-ending endeavor because we're also subject to the violations and the recommendations at the time of the code that's relevant. So codes change over time,
Yes.
And we have to be responsive at the time. Some of those codes may be different in 2026 when we go through this process again versus what they were in 2016. But we've done substantial. We can bring some statistics and data back to the board on what's been completed and what hasn't, but we took an effort to prioritize the A priorities, which I believe at the time was about $4.5 to $5 million of the assessment.
Okay, and so with the assessment, okay, the 10-year life safety, okay, I'd like to see what has been completed. I'm completed A, B, C, C1, C2, whatever. I want to see what has been completed. We've worked on this for a while.
Yep.
And now it's time to report out to tell us all the money that we have approved.
So we can
Let's see it.
bring that presentation back at the next student achievement or operations meeting. I mean, it's easy to pull. You all have it, right? Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions
Thank
related to item 16A, then I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing concerning the intent of the board to issue up to $30 million of working cash fund bonds of the district.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Ms. Fabian. All in favor?
Close it.
Yep, to close.
Yeah, 'cause we
Signify
have-
with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Meeting is, hearing is closed. We have item C, ratification of second processing of May 2024 board bills, manual check request payments, and Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of May 8th, 2024 through May 21st, 2024.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education ratify the second May 2024 processing of board bills, manual check request payments, and Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of May 8, 2024 through May 21st, 2024. The accounts payable board payments for the period of May 8, 2024 through May 21st, 2024 totals $3,515,444.58. The manual check request payments for the period of May 8, 2024 through May 21st, 2024 total $553,132.14. The Old National Bank insurance payments for the period of May 8, 2024 through May 21st, 2024 total $883,544.85.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fabian. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. McBride, Ms. Hannah,
I pass.
Ms. Fabian,
Yes.
Ms. Lindsay. Yes. President Ewing.
Yes, item approved. Motion carries. I'm gonna take a 5-minute recess. It's now 9 o'clock, so if you guys want to use the restroom and then meet back here at 9:11. We still got a few items, and we've been here since 6.
I already took my bathroom break.
You want me to take over so we can get done?
It is 9:13. I'd like to call back to order or resume, go back into open session. If I have a motion to resume open session. Motion by Ms. Hannah. Second by Ms. Lansing. All in favor signify with aye. Aye.
What is
All
this?
board members are present
going
with the
back
exception of McBride and Fabian. So Ms. McBride will be right with
Oh,
us.
Miss Fabian's right here.
Yep. I'm sorry, Gonzalez and
There it is.
and McBride. All right, so we are at reports and presentations. Do we have any? Nope. So we are at the board policy 6040 on discipline equity review. This is a first reading.
First reading.
Delegates, but I don't have one.
You don't have one?
We don't have, sorry, I apologize. We don't have a Lakes Division meeting coming up soon that we're aware of?
No.
I feel
Not
like it's
unless
been a
they-
long time.
No, they only do 2 a year.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
So usually
Now
one
I
in
know.
the
One in the
spring and
and
fall.
one in the fall.
I just
Right.
need to not get sick.
Oh yeah, that's
Right.
so we do have
Running.
the
It's my running.
discipline. So I'm going to ask us to hold on. I mean, if you have comments, questions, concerns, now is the time to bring them up. If not, make sure that you get those suggestions and recommendations into Miss Vanderbrook and CC myself and the superintendent. All right.
With 5212.
Under yeah, so under old business, we got 5212, the grading and final examinations policy. This is a second reading.
So we need to hold it, right?
That's not this one though. So do we got a motion to approve items 19A?
No, it is this one.
This is the
Oh, grading and final. I'm sorry, I was looking at
Yeah.
promotions and
No,
retention.
yeah.
Do you want me to read this?
So I still need. Yep.
It's
Item 19A, board policy 5212, grading and final examinations, and 5213, final examinations, second reading.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amendments to Board Policies 5212, grading and final examinations, 5213, final examinations as presented for second reading, with the additional change to having the grading scale for 6th through 12th grade reflect a score range of 0 as an F, 0 to 59 as an F, as recommended by the administration.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lansing. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah, I thought that we were going to wait until some conversations were had with the teachers
We are.
on this.
So
why are we passing it?
because we struck out the part that they had concerns with so that we can have further dialogue. Everybody agrees with the rest of the policy, so it doesn't make sense to hold. What we're doing is keeping the F where it currently is at 0 to 59 to allow for greater conversations and communication. That's what was requested even in the emails that the board got. That's what we heard tonight from the speakers, and that's what some of the board members had reached out about, even ones that sat on the committee, to say they had no issue with having further dialogue and talking with the teachers in order to and when I say to his credit, but also in consultation with Dr. Cesario, and that our goal is not to rush through it, but to make sure that we have dialogue and conversation, and the requests that were made were reasonable, and we're okay with striking that specific criteria.
Okay, but it's a board policy.
Correct.
Remember,
We decide. So
we decide,
So do
and
you?
so I'm asking for this to be held.
I'm ready to vote on it.
Ready to vote on it.
I'm ready.
As-
Roll
With
call.
the adjustments.
Oh, can we
Oh
have some
yeah,
more
sorry.
comments?
Go ahead. Yes, yes.
So I, again, just want to echo that based on a lot of commentary, especially from board members in the last meeting where we wanted to have that dialogue, I'm really appreciative that that is coming to fruition. I think there were a lot of concerns shared during public comment. I don't personally agree with some of the sentiments, but I can understand the teacher's perspective, so I'm really excited to listen in on the dialogue and get the perspective of our staff that will need to do this. The one concern I have with timing is if we're looking to come back in November, in my mind, is that still applying to the 24-25 school year, or it would be to set it in place for 25-26, and it gives the staff time to acclimate to how that's going to impact them?
And so, and
Deputy Cesario shaking his head, yes. Superintendent is saying yes.
I want to make sure that's clarified, right? Because yes.
And so why can't we wait on approving this policy to make sure that this policy will reflect what our teachers
We did that tonight.
were saying?
We did that tonight.
And there's some components in the policy that we're really excited about as well. Like, one big highlight I like was that we would, under the old policy, use behavior as grades as a reason to exclude students from extracurriculars, whether it be dances or field trips or etc. This removes that. Like, our students deserve those opportunities. But so those components, the teachers aren't having complaints with. The only sticking point has been the 50% floor. So because there's so many other benefits that can help our students now at the start of the school year, we want them to have access to those benefits.
But
That's
it's
my
not
personal
But
stance.
it's not going to, according to what you all just said.
So let me clarify. The only component that is going to be delayed for the following school year is going to be whether or not we adopt 50% being the floor as a baseline and 50 to 59 being an F, or is it going to remain 0 to 59 being an F? That is the only component that would go into effect school year 2025 to 2026.
I mean, it's
If
so
we
far
decide
out.
on it. If we decide on it.
Right, right.
Well, it will be decided either, like I said, the 0 to 59 or the 50 to 59 for
Okay,
that
y'all
school
can
year.
call the vote, 'cause I'm not in
Okay.
support of it.
Yeah, my only.
Just call the vote.
No, I'm good. My comment is only as it relates to there were comments and assumptions that were made. While we can say that involving teacher voice is always important to us, I do not want to ignore the voices of the many educators that sat on the committee. And
Oh, of
sometimes
course.
we have this idea that because I was not involved, then it must not have solicited input from teachers, and that is not true. Teachers were a part of this process, and when we talk about administrators, guess what? Most administrators were educators and still are, right? And so I don't want that to be the thing that is missed. While we do want greater engagement, I don't want to ignore the efforts and the work of those that were on that committee. And what a lot of people understand and know about committee work is typically not everybody agrees with everything that is implemented in a policy. But what you do is you get a lot of different stakeholders, you get different opinions, and you bring that information forward. So I do appreciate the thought that was put into it. I receive it with the intent that was intended, and it makes and because there are these other great components of the policy and all the work that is done, doesn't make sense to throw, excuse the reference, the baby out with the bathwater, but it makes sense for us to say, hey, let's approve all the parts that we agree with, and then let's have a further deeper dialogue related to the 50%. But our approval of this policy keeps our current grading practice as is. There is no change.
The
So-
practice, actually, Mr. President, is that the Board of Education make up the policies.
So what
And not
policy
the-
suggestions do
and
you
not
have?
the-
The rest of the
No,
board is saying
I'm-
they agree with the policy. So the board will vote, and by us voting, we'll say that we agree with the policy. If there were any recommended changes outside of the ones that were presented, then we would change it. Administration heard the feedback from the board members, they heard the feedback from the community, and they talked amongst themselves. So this is one of the rare instances in which it seems like we're all in agreement. So roll call.
Call the vote.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes, I'm going to vote yes on this because of what's been said, and I was prepared to vote no because I do believe the 50% is a disincentive to our students. But I am going to vote yes because we're taking that out.
Mr. McBride?
Yes, and like Mr. Riddle's, I echoed the wisdom of what came forward as far as the teachers are concerned. And I think I'm glad that we held it over. As Brandon used the words, dig a deeper dive into this, and maybe we may see something we may have missed.
I don't know.
Ms. Hannah?
I'm going to say no because the policy has already been drafted, and I'd like to vote on the policy when it's in the final draft to make sure that that everything is not. I'm not saying that it's not going to be done, but I would rather wait until it is finalized, the draft is finalized, so that I will know exactly what I'm voting on. So, no.
Ms. Fabian?
I would just like to say thank you to all the teachers that came out, and to everybody's comments from last committee meeting as well, because I feel like we're all speaking the same language and asking what's best for our students. However, we have different perspectives as to what that is. So thank you to the admin for changing that, and I will vote yes.
Ms. Lindsay?
I'm voting yes. I do appreciate Ms. Hannah's perspective of seeing it in final version form. I think this is one of those times where when it is available and sent to the board in its final draft, if it's not as it is supposed to be, then we say that's not what we said in the meeting, this doesn't reflect it. And you know, again, I want our teachers to be engaged in the process when we have these hot button items, right? I think to Mr. Ewing's point, yes, there are a lot of qualified people on that committee that put in a lot of work, and it has, to Ms. Fabian's point, the goal of ensuring our students have access to the best education, and the focus should be on learning, not necessarily a grade, but I understand that in our world we have to use those as metrics, right? So I'm excited to listen in on these conversations and partake in these conversations with individuals. We may not agree in the end, but I think that dialogue is going to help people understand and process and make their decisions after they engage in that dialogue, to Mr. McBride's point. So that I did say yes in the beginning.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, President.
Item approved, motion carries. And again, thank you for all of those who came out. We have item B, Board Policy 5215, Promotion and Retention, second reading.
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amendments to Policy 5215, Promotion and Retention, as presented for the second reading and be phased in over a 3-year period as set forth in the policy presentation during superintendent's time this meeting.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Fabian and a second by Ms. Lindsay. Just wanted to clarify, is the reason that we read it that way, the presentation talks about a phased-in implementation. The policy does not call for a phased-in implementation. So the policy was, the recommended action was read to reflect that tiered implementation. With that, Mr. Riddle.
Yes, I have a question about this policy, and we just had first reading last meeting, and section 3D of this policy, it also talks about promotion and the fact that you know the minimum minimum credits required is 17, and and in 2028 that will go up to 19. Now, when we first lowered this to 17, we heard this was a temporary measure, if I recall correctly, and this was due partly to COVID and that some students had not done well during remote learning, and that we would consider raising the minimum credits back up. There's nothing in this policy that talks about that until 2028, and that's when it has to go up because of the requirement by the state for language. So I'm concerned about voting on this tonight if we're not going to consider raising the requirements and telling our kids what they wanted us to do. When I was at MICFA and talking to a lot of the students, and Dr. Cesario was there too, a lot of those students were upset. They felt like they had been, like again, they felt that we didn't trust them to earn more credits. When I also surveyed other districts around our area, I noticed that they didn't lower their credits requirements for graduation. North Chicago, Chicago still has 24. East Aurora has 22. Yes, the state has only 16, but they had that before. So we're only one above. So I will vote yes for this policy because it does have other requirements, just like the previous one, that a lot of work has been done, but I think the board needs to have further questions about when are we going to consider raising our minimum requirements back up to where they were, or closer to where they were.
So 2 quick points. Yes, Mr. Riddle, but you remember in 2 separate conversations. So the board suspended our promotion policy, I think, school year 2020, when the pandemic first
Yes.
happened, and school year 2021. And then we came, I voted no, but we did have a conversation around lowering them to the 17.
Right.
The board, to Ms. Hannah's point, drafts policy. So if there is a revision period that you would like to add into the promotion policy, that is reviewed on an annual basis, that is looked at in 2026, that is looked at in 2027, those are all in the purview and in the power of the administration to put those check-ins in to the policy if that is something that the Board of Education would like. Outside of that, anytime we want to have a conversation, there's a lot of work. You don't want to have it swing wildly one way or the other. But I do think if this is something that the board would like to revisit, with a majority concurrence. But the current policy as it's written reflects the current policy as
Right.
was approved the previous year.
And Mr. Riddle, Ms. Gonzalez sat on that policy committee, and so if you will allow me to have a conversation with Eduardo and get us together, but it's definitely a conversation that we can put together and have a conversation as a board.
Sure.
So I'll work with the board president on that, but I'd like
Okay.
Ms. Gonzalez here because I know she spearheaded that work with the committee.
Okay.
So do we want to hold it or are we at risk?
No,
Well, we should.
we can vote on it.
Just from my perspective, the policy comment and concern that you have is the graduation policy.
Yes.
And my recommendation from a policy development perspective would be to address that policy, and if that policy changes for credits, at the same time, we would bring forward the applicable amendment in this promotion policy.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Pass.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Lensing?
Yes, and to Dr. Nault's point, I'm really excited to see this be done with fidelity because it's going to benefit our students and our community.
President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We have 2 items, 20A and 20B. Are you all, it's 9:32. Is anybody opposed to taking those items together? All right. Motion to approve items 20A and 20B. Item 20A, retention of real estate appraisal expert, and 20B, Yeoman Creek lease extension.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hannah. Superintendent, if you can read both recommendations.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve the Second Amendment to limited surface, wait, you're moving us, Leah, close. Hold on, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Is this the first one, Lee? Because you moved the, okay. It is recommended the Board of Education authorize the district legal counsel to engage in services with MAI appraiser for real estate appraisal and expert witness services required in connection with the pending property tax appeal board legal proceedings in the amount of $11,000. It is also recommended that the Board of Education approve the Second Amendment to the limited surface ground lease dated September 9, 2021, between the district, Yeoman Solar 1 LLC, and the Yeoman Creek Remediation Group as recommended by the administration.
So we had a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Point of order, Mr. President. Hold on one second. under new business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can take them as together because I thought that they were both regarding Yeoman Creek.
No, they're two separate ones. One is with an
Right.
appraisal, but they can still be taken combined. It's just voting on them together. It's creating an omnibus. It's our rules. I mean, if anybody has an issue with it, it's.
I'm just wondering.
I'm not aware of a rule offhand that would prevent you from taking them together. The motions are separate. The first one is for
appraisal.
It's an engagement of an expert to do an appraisal to support the district's
Position.
defense of a PTAB appeal that came in. The second one is the lease extension, but I'm not aware of anything governing the board meeting rules that would not allow them to be taken together if the board was in agreement with that based on the two different motions that were read.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Proceed.
Roll call.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Fabian?
Yes.
Yes. President Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. We'll do something that I don't typically do, but I forgot to. No, I'm gonna keep with protocol. Go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Board member
I'm gonna pass. Thanks to everybody for coming tonight. Thanks for all the hard work you do. Appreciate that. Thanks to all the board members here and all the time they spend. My fellow board members, thank you.
Ms. Fabian.
Just a reminder to parents, summer school is beginning next week, and then all the summer camps, there are some beginning next week as well, so please check your child's information, where you're supposed to be for that, and then inviting everybody to the Waukegan Friends Pride Parade and Fest on Saturday, June 1st. The parade is at 1 p.m. The festival is from 2 to 7, and it starts right here at Lincoln Center, and then it'll end on Sheridan and Clayton.
Thank you. Mr. McBride.
Just want to say thank you to all the staff that engaged in helping making summer school possible. I've been around for the last 16 years, and every year we have summer school because of the fact there's always some kids that's going to come up short academically, and summer school has always been a benefit for those reasons. So I just want to say thank you again for being able to put summer school together, because summer school has always been beneficial to those that come up short. Thank you.
Ms. Windsor.
So it's been a few meetings since we have had board member time, so I apologize. I'll try to make it brief. I was able to attend the Jack Benny honor roll event that they had for their 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I really want to appreciate Mr. Kirkwood and his team. You guys did a great job. There was some supports, I believe, from Lincoln Center as well. Ms. McGee was helping out, as well as parents. We had Mr. Sabecki there as well. It was just a great time to celebrate the students and watch them be with their families to just celebrate their academic success for the year, so that was great. I was also able to attend the John Clark Elementary Scholastic celebrations that they had over at the Lakehurst Center. It was beautiful. The team did a great job really focusing on the academics that the students achieved for the year. It was wonderful to see parents just enjoy their students doing well, and I was getting emotional and my kids weren't even there. Also, there was the student council event that Mr. Barry and Miss Patty put on with the support of Miss McGee and team over at the Greenbelt Cultural Center. Those students in student council from all of the middle schools did a great job presenting and just enjoying the time they had together. I also want to thank all of our retirees. I had to excuse myself partway through the meeting. It's 6 season, so everybody stay safe. But to Mr. Ewing's point, that's a lot of service that we're really appreciative for. And I just want to acknowledge that April was Autism Awareness Month, so hopefully individuals were able to light it up blue and just recognize that. We're currently in AAPI Heritage Month, so I want to have a big thank you to our members of the AAPI committee, to our Teachers United, the Filipino Teacher Dance Group, Mary Bassa, Gina Villarus, Carrie Haig, Nicholas Chin, the parents and students of Clark Elementary for the Malayalam, thank you. Dance group, those kids had moves. They had moves. Mr. Jeremy Montan, who's a graduate of Waukegan, came and did a DJ set. The parent volunteers, Diana Gonzalez and Stephanie Alan. Mr. Kirkwood, for letting us use the school. The FACE department did a great job putting that on. All the schools did their posters and they were beautiful with projects. Dr. Fields and Miss Ashley Lopez. In addition, there's a lot of people that were involved. In addition to Mr. Brian James Rigo. So if I've missed anyone, I do apologize. That wasn't intentional, so feel free to reach out. But it was a great event, and I'm excited to see more of these come through the district. And then I also just want to echo what Ms. Fabian said, that this is Waukegan's first Pride Parade, and so it's very exciting. If you can come out and enjoy the festivities this Saturday, you'd not only be supporting the LGBTQIA2S+ community at large, but also those that are our staff and our students. So hopefully we can see you there. And local business, yeah, larger community.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Ms. Hannah.
Okay, and it has been a long time since we did board member time, so I just want to shout out to Ms. Fulton and the team that put together, I know it's called something else, but I've always known it to be Decision Day. Yes. for our seniors, and this is one of the hats that the students received. It was a great event. The students had a good time, and want to give shout out to Carlos. He's been very active in our school, and I appreciate that. Also, I attended the Asian Heritage program, and it was really good. I was waiting for the dancers to do what's it's on TV. It's a production, and they had the dresses and all of that. It was just excellent. Want to give a shout out to the FACE department because I like the fact that they incorporated the district wide with the students, it being involved from different grade levels and stuff, and I think that that's a great thing that they're doing, including, and then of course the graduation of our seniors. It was a pleasure to be able to watch all of them walk the stage. But I did get concerned with one of the comments that was made earlier in reference to a teacher seeing students that were walking across the stage, but they did not pass her class. That's of concern. And then all of the 8th grade promotions, the students, they're gearing up to go into start their high school careers next school year, and I certainly hope that we're ready for them. We had the budget development committee that was and always is very interesting. And I love being a part of that, and that sometimes gives me the justification to make the statements that I do about our spending. I attended the retirement dinner. I hate to see all of that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 900 and some years total of the teachers that retired this year. And that's unfortunate. But other than that, my last comment is I certainly hope that we're thinking about, Mr. President, Superintendent, to have a review of this year and to see, and so that we can assess this year going into next year. And I think I've asked that request before, and so hopefully we can proceed into that. Other than that, thank you all for attending tonight, and thank you, audience, and all the teachers that came out. I thank you for that.
Board President, I apologize. I think I have a bit of egg on my face. Can I do one more thing?
Go for it.
I think I left out Ms. Quinn Norman, who's leading FACE. Not only did she help me provide a list of all the people, but I think I forgot to thank you specifically. So I really do appreciate all the work you're doing.
And I'll be somewhat brief, but I have a lot of comments that we had. I agree with hitting the pause button as we have greater communication. And as someone who was on the opposing side when we did lower credits, I still don't like a lot of the conversation that surrounds that decision. And so for the record, and even when our students and we're hearing from it, I think it's up to us as adults to be able to explain to them what that was made. Is setting a minimum set of credit requirements does not limit anybody's ability to hit the max. The promotion policy, which also looks at GPA in credit attainment and other things, is important, as we want to make sure that those classes are invaluable. Someone who works in finances and understands the importance of financial literacy, I think it is important for our students to understand why these classes matter, and that their motivation not just be tied to I only have to pass, I only have to attend if it's required to graduate. I think that's a mindset shift that we as a community should be challenging with our young people, to understand that you can gain 17 credits by the time you end your sophomore year. And so again, so there's no limit of capping, but what are the different pathways? So I do want to, the intent behind it was to support those students who were struggling. We talked about it and how the administration, being at the high school, came here and told the board some of the struggles that they were having after the pandemic with students in failing vast majority of the class and not being able to find it in the schedule to make up that time. So for those students in which it would be a hindrance and something that would stop them from graduating, this creates a floor from which they cannot fall behind, which is one above the state minimum requirements, right? But nobody should aspire to the minimum. I don't believe that our students aspire to the minimum. And if that is the narrative, is that we lower the students so that they don't have to do anything, we need to talk to them and make sure that they are aware of the endless possibilities that are there presented. We've had students who've graduated Waukegan High School with associate's degrees because they've been able to maximize their high school experience, and we need to be able to show our students these pathways and these opportunities, because my quick points is remind them of the intent, maintaining academic standards, as the rigor is not reduced because we reduce the credit requirements, right? The rigor is still the rigor. What you have to do is pass those classes, and we want to make sure that our students are passing and they understand the importance of a GPA. We also want to encourage enrichment and advanced learning to make sure that our students are taking those other opportunities, and so if they can get the requirements out of the way, it opens up their course loads to be able to take those classes that they really enjoy. And then each person's individualized education path. Your path is different from my path, is different than their path. And what we want to do is make sure that we have paths for all students and student groups. So as we continue to have these conversations, I don't want there to be a deficit narrative around us lowering the standards for our students, as much as we are saying there's a floor from which our students cannot fall below. and there is endless opportunity for the students and how many credits they can achieve. And so I thank you to all of those who came out this evening, and I appreciate the continued conversation. What tonight shows is that our educators, our administrators, our board, and our community are deeply invested in the success of our students. And to Ms. Fabian's point, while we may not always agree, I'm glad we're having a conversation, is that we want to prioritize the needs of our students. And with that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr.
Second.
McBride, second by Ms. Fabian. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.